Now that right there looks like a woodpecker's hole. Hey guys, Ron Perry here for another homebrew video. Except this one was taken over the period of about 3 weeks. Kind of decided to do videos more on the quality bit than the quantity bit, and so we brewed up some Cooper's Canadian Blonde. I think it's a lager. Now, there sounds like that kid from The Simpsons. So this is probably gonna be the video that I look back on humbly as the moment when I was really setting myself up for failure and learned something in the process. And after I got to the end of making all the content for this brew video, I realized that what a waste of time and effort that I did this time around. Now, I believe I know how to fix the problem, and in the video coming up, I talk about a second batch of maple syrup that we're going to use at a later date, but we're going to use it in a totally different way and try to get a lot more out of the maple syrup this time. But I'm going to keep that secret. So I wasted the syrup. The beer at the end really didn't end up having any maple flavor, and it taught me a lesson of cost. I don't have a lot of money, and I sure don't have $20 to add in syrup when I could have added something else for much less money. And that's the point of it. And I really didn't realize this in full until this week, well actually yesterday, when I started making dandelion wine. And the ingredients of which cost, I think, a total of $5. So, for 5 gallons. So, it is kind of important to recognize how much money you're putting into your swill, right? So when I'm making my recipes for my various drinks that I'm always going to have on hand, the drinks that I'm going to be known for, I want to test everything and really learn this craft, and failure is part of learning in my experience. The best part of learning is actually embarrassing yourself a little bit, humbling yourself to the point of knowing better next time. I will never do that again. So what I'm gonna do in the future with my syrup is gonna be adding chunks of sugar maple wood, little squares of sugar maple wood. I have some friends still in the stair industry. I used to build stairs, and I can easily get some nice sugar maple boards, the good sugary stuff. So that's that. Hey guys, it's your buddy Ron, back for another homebrew blog, whatever. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about maple syrup and all that, and I discussed maple syrup with my buddy, and we just came down with a couple of points that needed to be sorted out. And the main point is that sugar water from a tree ain't gonna be much of a difference, and it's not gonna add much of a flavor to your beer because it's so diluted. So he said, go get yourself some maple syrup, and what he's gonna do is he's gonna have a couple batches put aside for me of some good stuff. Now, when he talks about the good stuff, that means like the stuff that you know, is left, you know, it's kind of over thickened and it's got an extra little bit of flavor, and he's gonna put them in 2-pound buckets for me, so that each one's gonna be perfect for my next home brews, which is gonna be the cider and possibly a mead. So we're gonna try the maple flavor in all those drinks, and I just gonna try to see how like the yeast eats the sugar, right? And there's gotta be a flavor left, and how does this all work? And me being a little greenhorn, you know, not knowing anything in the world, I've gotta pick a idea and get down to the what happens to it. Like, what happens to this whole mixture when I mix my Cooper's Blonde with my maple syrup instead of using the Cooper's Enhancer, right? Like, is it gonna dry out? Like, how's those flavors gonna come together? And then if I liked it, if it's a sort of a success, it's gonna work. I've got water boiling on the stove. I'll be right back. Here it is. You see, what that hippie didn't understand a few weeks ago is that the syrup was going to be completely eaten up by the beer. And there wasn't going to be no flavor at the end because he put the syrup in right at the very beginning. And this is the flaw. I'm not going to do it like a Discovery Channel video where you find out at the end, but I ask the question every 5 minutes. What happens? What happens? I'm going to tell you in the beginning, guys. You can stop the video now if you want. Or you can see the grand disaster. Or was it a disaster? I don't have any nice glasses yet. I'm going to have to work on that. It's not boiling yet. So I hope the picture quality's fine. My daughter's gone down to Florida with my sister and took my main selfie cam, and I'm kind of back to the old school stuff here. So I hope the video's going good here. Now, Cooper's kits are kind of like the beginner's kits that, you know, you should always start with, it looks like. When I started, I got this nice package from Toronto Brewing Company, and the Albert's kits, and they were, you know, they were full kits. You know, they had the liquid malt extract, and stuff like this, and then they had the dry malt extract, and there was like a whole bunch of it for the 5 gallons, right? So these beers were not a beginner's recipe. And the reason is not that, it's a very simple reason, and it is that you have to be able to respect the ferment. You know, to make these kits, it's one thing to cook the recipe very patiently and to the T of the instructions, you know, getting your temperatures right, cooling it down, adding all these things. However, when it comes to the end of the ferment, and then racking it to your secondary fermentation, that right there, I kind of messed it up with my IPA. And the result is that the beer is a little thicker tasting and has too much. It's not the final taste that they were looking for, and I'm gonna get it the next time, I promise you, because I have drank about 2 gallons of this stuff, and I really want to get it right next time. Trust me. So I've got water boiling on the stove. It wasn't quite boiling last time I checked, but these Cooper's kits don't have to be cooked on the stove, and that's the important thing about the beginner's kits. So this is why I'm sharing this video on my main channel as well as this channel right here, because I think that this is the video that's gonna help my friends get into making beer. Now this can of extract is $18.99, so $21. I was able to buy some Camden pills for my cider in a couple of weeks, and this can of Cooper's. This bottle of syrup was pretty expensive. I forget how much it was. I think it was maybe $18 itself. But so this is a $40 kit, I guess, and it's going to be like 2 cases of beer, or so I think, or 14 2-liter bottles. I think that's what I read. I could be totally wrong about that, but that's no big deal because this is what we're worried about right now. So we got water boiling on the stove, and the reason we're boiling our water is because we want to make sure that this is sterilized. It's when it gets together, we get it mixed and everything's good. We want all of our equipment to be sterilized as well. I cleaned this beforehand. I'm not going to go show you how to clean. I'm sure there's some guy out there with pink pants out sticking his butt out like this and saying, you should really clean everything you have. And those guys are cool. I have no problem with them. Okay. But this ain't no cleaning show. So, I'm going to get my water because it should be ready by now. We're going to take the cap off of this. What we're going to do is we're going to add our ingredients to the bucket. We're going to put the rest of the water in the bucket. Then we're going to fill the bucket up to here after we have it mixed nicely. And then we're going to add our yeast. So we'll be right back after the water's boiled and cooled off. No cooling off. We'll be right back in just a little bit. Okay, like I said, everything's clean. We've got our boiled water here off to the side, and we reset the camera so that we could show what's happening in the bucket, just so that there's no Area 51 stuff going on here. I want to make sure everything stays clean, so I'm going to put this on top of the clean bucket. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is add a little bit of water to our primary fermenter. Now this water is boiling, or just got off the stove and is boiling. Then we're going to take our can over here. I'm going to move our bucket to the side so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take my can of Cooper's here, get the yeast out of there, put it off to the side, and take my can and put it inside the rest of the hot water in that pot there. Now you're going to need a glove because that can's going to get super hot, obviously. So my next step is to add our maple syrup. I've already pulled the tab off on the inside, and we're just going to add the whole thing to our bucket here. Oh, that's good stuff. Oh, ooh, it smells good. I'm going to take this, put the lid on, put it upside down over here, and then take a swig of it later. So we've got our maple syrup in there. Mix it all up. Let me get a smell of it. Oh, caramely. Okay, let's pull out my can now. Oh, it is hot. Very hot. I said grab something and I didn't grab anything. Okay. And to open up the can with just a regular old can opener from the kitchen. And pour that all in nice. Now not all of it's going to get out of the can all at once, so what we're going to do is we're going to pour out as much as we can. Get the lid up like that. Okay. Now we're going to pour a little bit more hot water into the can itself. Add the rest of the water into the bucket. Much. And now we stir it all up nice. Wash that off the side of the bucket there. Now it's kind of important to get a little bit of oxygen into here, so you mix it up really nicely. Now we're doing this before we add our yeast. We don't really want to add too much oxygen to the mix after we've added our yeast. So oh, that smells good. Smells like the harbor of Hamilton when Lakeport is starting their brew. Last little bit out of there. Might as well get it all. So now we're going to go to the tap and fill this up to the 5-gallon mark. And we'll be right back. Cooper's yeast. Some people say to rehydrate this stuff. I tend to follow the directions, and since this is a beginner's brew kit, as I'm kind of playing along with right now, this is going to be beginner style of adding yeast. So just lay it on top of the foam. It will make itself down, and if it doesn't, we'll smell that already. Oh, it's on fire. So we're gonna put our lid on. Actually, I'm gonna give that a stir just to get that yeast down in there. Get it down in there. Now, before we put the yeast in here, this was called wort. Now that we've got the yeast in here. This is now beer. And it's now beer because that yeast, within a few hours, is gonna start eating up all the sugars, carbohydrates in there, and pooping out alcohol, the kind we like. So I'm gonna get my bung here figured out, my airlock with some stuff we distilled last week out of my buddy's get up. But that's about it. We'll be back in a couple of days with another update. You know what's kind of crazy? I just finished this video. We put the yeast in about not even 5 minutes ago. Put the airlock in here and it's bubbling like crazy already. That's kind of funny. And it's not artificial, it's totally bubbling like crazy. See you in 4 days. I purchased Cooper's Canadian Blonde from Danny's Beer and Wine Supply on Hamilton Road in London, Ontario, Canada. The hydrometer is a bit of a dark art for me still. There's too many numbers on this tube for me to really figure it out just yet. I kind of get glimpses of understanding the hydrometer, but just as soon as I think I get it, I turn around and look back and I've lost it. Give me some time, would you? I'm just putting this here for those that think it does matter. And if I'm on the right track, let me know, yo. Cooper's Blonde Ale is a really nice drink, and it's a really nice kit. And I say that because it is a beginner's beer, and you really don't need the equipment that the average or the all-grain brewer needs. They really don't need a pot to boil on the stove. You can, but you could use a kettle as well. Mixing your ingredients in the bucket is totally right up the alley of this kit. So I took my 2-gallon pot, my 2-gallon aluminum pot. It's mainly decorative because I don't have a stainless steel pot yet. And I boiled 2 gallons of water to start off our bucket. Well, this is a 5-gallon recipe, and I've got like a 4-gallon bucket. Well, I can fit 4 gallons in this bucket. While still having enough room to allow it to ferment and bubble on the top. Because that's what happens when your beer is being eaten by the yeast. The yeast farts and sends up little bubbles to the top, and it starts foaming up. And when this whole yeast culture gets to critical mass and just is rocking and rolling, your fermenting bucket will explode with foam, right? And you know, it's something to watch for. You have to have just enough room in the top of that bucket to allow it to contain the foam, and not send it up through the air block. But if it still does go up through the air block, that's okay. The air block is still working. It's just got beer in the cup. So, if you bought one of these Alfred's starter kits that I got from Toronto Brewing Co., you know, it is the perfect match to this kit is to get a Cooper's kit in the can, just like I got here. And you know, I highly suggest that you get the additive, the Cooper's additive that they have for the kit. It adds a little bit extra body to the beer. And but if you're an experimenter like me, you know, I just went with the can only because I didn't figure out about the other stuff until I got home. But so this ferments in the bucket for about 4 days. Now, nothing says that you can't leave it for 5 days. And if you've got a day job and you're a patient kind of guy, or, you know, are using both of your buckets at the same time, I've got a vlog there, back a couple videos where I tell you how I got cheap carboys. But, you know, leave it for 4 or 5 days and then rack it, which means take your clear liquid in the bucket. Like the bucket has a bunch of yeast that has fallen to the bottom. And this yeast is, I would say, maybe, I don't know, this is an uneducated opinion right here, statement. But I would say about 20% of that yeast is dead. But 80% of that yeast just fell to the bottom and became inactive. I don't know, maybe it ate too much sugar, needs to have a vacay or a nice nap. I don't know, but it's perfectly good yeast still. So don't throw it out when you rack the bucket. You want to throw that into a sterilized mason jar and let it sit for a few hours, and then you throw it in the fridge. Leave the beer in the mason jar too. Like you want to leave a little bit of beer at the bottom and swill it together, because the yeast is going to need the nutrients of that beer to survive in the fridge, or the reanimation when you get it to go into your next brew, aka my primary fermenting of this dandelion wine that I'm making. Now I've got wine yeast that I have as backup, but if it works out, I want to try the beer yeast first, so that I start off, I just start off doing things the way I want to do them. And I've got beer yeast in the fridge and it's going to go bad, and I'm using it. I still got the IPA in the fridge. I'm kind of scared. I kind of want to use it for the apple cider. But so racking it off, you take the clear liquid and you leave all the stuff that's settled at the bottom in the bottom. If a little bit of the bottom stuff comes up into the next vessel, then that's fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to fall to the bottom again. And the thing is every time you rack like this, you clear up that major bottom content so that it can't come back up into the liquid. And then you always are being you are working with gravity and, just the process of this yeast deactivating itself and falling to the bottom of the bucket. You get a clearer and clearer liquid as time goes on. However, this beer can totally be drank on day 8. Well, it can be drank on any day after the primary ferment is done. right after day 4 or 5, when you change the buckets, when you rack it off, you can drink some then. And it's going to be flat. It's not going to have any bubbles in it at all. But what I did, see, Cooper says that they want you to put their Cooper's tablets in every bottle. And this carbonates the bottle properly. And that was important at a certain time, I guess. I don't know if it was or not. But what I did was, when I got these kits when I got the Alfred's extract brewing kits from Toronto Brewing Co., they had 500 grams of corn sugar, dextrose, in the kit, and that was for carbonating the bottles. And that was for a 5-gallon recipe. So I'm not going to make rocket science out of this. I just put 500 grams of dextrose into this beer and allow it to wait for at least a week at room temperature. Do not put it in the fridge. Let it go for room temperature, and the residual yeast that is in your beer, because it's really hard to get rid of all of it, will carbonate, and it'll carbonate awesome. But you have to let it go, and over a period of about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending how warm the location is that you're in, you'll get a nice carbonation of your beer. Now, I bottle my beer in plastic 2-liter bottles, but if you're going to be bottling this in glass bottles, it's really important to get the right amount of sugar, because if you put too much sugar in, your glass bottles are going to become bombs. I see it. There he is. I wonder what the hell he's doing. He's going mighty slow. Flying into the sun, you tricky bugger.